G'day guys, this is Rob from troutlaw.com.au, Australia's fly tying specialist store. Today we're back on the trout stuff, tying this fun little CDC bubble wing caddis. It's got a segmented quill body on the underside, a little bit of flash, and a whole heap of floatability with that bubble wing made from CDC. So let's get started. We are coming in with a Firehole 315 hook. That's their nymph stone clink hammer style hook. And then we are going to take some UTC 70 thread in white, and just behind the eye we'll start making touching wraps of that, laying the excess on top of the hook shank as we go down, so that it allows us to start building some coverage over the darker colour of the actual steel. We're using white here, and it'll make sense in a minute, but we're going to use a magic quill, synthetic quill, to create the segmented body, and they're a clear synthetic quill, as you can see here, with a tapered print on them, and basically they show through the color of the thread underneath. Now you'll notice that one edge has the dark color and one edge is clear. We want to tie that in so that we're wrapping with the clear side facing down and the darker edge towards the hook eye. So we'll capture that in, peel up that little tag and just trim him off, and then we just want to carry on wrapping over that to get a nice white coating on that hook shank. We don't want to build up too much bulk, especially down towards the base, because we still want to taper to it. But we can build up a little bit of additional bulk here through the bend and just get a bit more of a white coloration. Of course, when you're using the finer thread, there's always the chance you can snap it like that. So we'll load this bobbin up and we'll get right back into it. You get a little bit carried away doing these wraps, and it's easy enough to just nick that hook point and away she snaps. But we're back in business now, and we'll finish that gentle taper and bring the thread up near the hook eye, pop a half inch in there just to lock that in place. And then before we wrap this magic quill, we're going to add a little bit of colour to our body with a permanent marker, and we're using an olive green colour here. Basically just going to run it straight up the top of the hook shank, just gently apply a bit of colour in there, and that's going to leave the underside white. So once we wrap this quill, it'll give us a two-toned look to that body. Just get in there. There we go. Pop the lid on that and get it out of the way. Now we're going to start wrapping our magic quill up the hook shank, making just slightly overlapping wraps and widening them out as we go up, so that the tapered quill is allowed to expand. Once we get up towards the eye, leaving some space before the eye for tying materials off, just trim that out, put a few extra wraps in, and another half inch to lock that off. Now to finish off that body, we want to give it a nice glossy coat. So we're using Upavon Crystal Coat UV resin. Given that it's the middle of winter here, this stuff tends to run a little bit thick, but that's quite alright. It still gives us a really nice coating that comes up super glossy and super tough. Just need to put that dot on there, and then with our bodkin, just work it up and down the hook shank and make sure we coat everything. And you'd be surprised. Most people think, oh, you've got to go for the really thin stuff for this sort of body, but this works really nice and the result comes out pretty damn good. It does tend to settle and level itself out once it's been spread on the hook. It doesn't clump up. So we just keep working that in, getting it in between all those little grooves created by the Magic Quill wraps, and then finish off up the top there, smooth that out. I'll just let that sit upside down for a moment so that it evens itself out across the back. Then we'll take our Loon UV torch, fire in from the underside, rotate that around, and then we'll just make sure that we've covered all the angles. At this stage, just check that thread's not glued into place, and then we'll come back in and hit it again to give it a nice hard glossy coat. And that is it, she's ready to go. The next stage, we are going to put a little bit of flash in the underwing. So for that, we're using some Chuck and Duck Fluoro Lime Crystal Flash. You only need just a little bit of that, so you can probably pick up one of the scraps that's sitting on the bench from the last one. You only need a very short section. And we're just going to capture that at that point. Like so. And fold it over. And we just want to align it so that both of those are forming a nice V and going back either side of the hook, as you can see there. Then for our wing, we're using some dun coloured CDC. This is the Vineyard stuff. Really nice feathers, these in 1 gram packs. There's plenty in there. And basically we're going to take 2 feathers and align the tips like so. Preen those fibres down to the very tips. Trim off the absolute end so we have a stub. And capture that stub with a couple of loose thread wraps. And just slide it back until it's almost at the edge. And bite down. And then wrap back until we're about even with that hook point. At this stage, you just preen everything back to keep it out of the way. Now we just want to build a little bulk into the thorax of this fly. So we're going to use some Chuck and Duck Hare and Squirrel. This one in the golden olive. Nice little colour. Pop a little bit of dubbing wax onto the thread. The tiniest pinch of dubbing. You can see it's not a lot needed. And then just build out a thin dubbing noodle. Pull our feathers out of the way and then wrap back onto those to that thread point. We'll put a little extra dubbing in there. Again, just the tiniest of pinches. create a nice fine noodle. Here we're going to build bulk from the rear and taper it down to the eye. Then we'll take both of these feathers, fold them forward and preen all those fibres back, keeping them aligned together. Pinch that down with our left hand and capture with a couple of loose wraps, then pulling up to lock that into place. You can see there's our wing. And then a couple more wraps, one underneath, one over the top again. That secures everything. And we'll pull those stubs back and wrap back onto them slightly so that it forces those stubs down. Then we'll come back in with a little bit more dubbing just to colour out that head. So again, the tiniest amount on that thread, create a nice fine dubbing noodle, and we will start wrapping back over the CDC slightly, then come forward to the front where the hook eye is. I'm going to whip finish, but before we do, we'll take our permanent marker and again just colour that thread so we're not left with white thread, and then a couple of 2 or 3 turn whip finishes right in that little gap between the dubbing and the eye. And I'll lock that away, trim off that excess. And we just need to take these stubs and snip them off. It's a matter of just tidying everything up. Some of those longer strands, just get into them with our scissors and clean them out. And then our crystal flash, we just want to trim that at about the same length as the wing itself. To finish that up, we'll take our dubbing brush and scruff out that dubbing from the underside. Nothing like a good scruffy fly. Clean that up. And there you have it, the CDC bubble wing caddis. Just fan those wings out slightly on top to create a wider profile from where the fish seat underneath. There's a lovely segmented body, a little bit of flash, and a whole heap of CDC to allow that to float all day long. As usual, all the materials can be found down there in the material list in the video description. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and of course, happy tying.